Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a while. Welcome back to the March and Silver MMA show. It's been a while, hasn't it, Oscar? We've had some fights. We've had UFC 313, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev in the books. Let's talk about it. But firstly, Oscar, always a pleasure to be talking to you. How are you?
I'm doing great. How could I not be doing great when we just witnessed the coronation of Big Ank? It is Big Ank time indeed. This is a guy that I have championed for several years, about half a decade now. And he finally proved me right, and it feels good to be right. You also get financially compensated by the good folks over at GFX as well. So I think this is going to be a celebration of a show. And for all the Alex Pereira fans, I think you can have your rematch coming up soon if you ask Dana White.
Yeah, I think it's a must for the UFC, and obviously Alex and Magomed Ankalaev put on a fantastic show in the main event of UFC 313. Great fight, a very close fight. 3-2 either way, I think, was the argument for any of them, Magomed Ankalaev or Alex Pereira. It came down to that fifth round, and in terms of how you're scoring, whoever wins the fight, and that's how it went down. For me, I had Alex winning 3-2. I thought he'd done enough to win the fight. I think he landed the more damaging blows. Magomed Ankalaev, though, did that fourth round kind of stalled the fight, but he won the round, though. He won the round. He banked the round. That was the most important thing for him, I do believe. He just getting that round, and ultimately that did win him the fight. He went on to get his hand raised. A close fight, though, Oscar. Just talk to me about it. It was good. I think Alex done better than I expected against probably the hardest challenge in 205.
Yeah, the prevailing theory was that Magomed Ankalaev had to aggressively wrestle to win this fight. And he did aggressively wrestle. He tried to take him down at least 10 times, and Pereira defended every single takedown, something that most people were not expecting whatsoever. But the big reveal in this fight was that Magomed Ankalaev is one of the best strikers in the light heavyweight division. And in my opinion, it appears he's a more effective striker than Alex Pereira. A man we had bigged up as this unstoppable force at light heavyweight. Nobody was going to beat him on the feet. Well, Magomed Ankalaev proved those people wrong. He was able to effectively pressure Alex Pereira for the majority of the fight. And not only was he able to pressure him, he was able to make him freeze up. When we always see Pereira throwing high volume, hunting knockouts, in this fight, he was relying mostly on some body work and some leg kicks. He was too hesitant, too gun shy to go for his usual left hook heel in this fight. This was truly an impressive game plan by Ankalaev, because not many guys are going to want to stand with Pereira. They would think if Pereira defends those takedowns, it's game over. It was not game over. He won rounds 2, rounds 3, and round 4 quite decisively. It was that round 3 that was a little iffy, if you ask me. We saw Pereira land more total strikes, but it was Ankalaev that landed more head strikes, which I thought had more impact. That was kind of a recovery round for Pereira. But the fact that it was close enough means that a rematch makes sense with how dominant of a champion Pereira was. So much to like here on both sides, because there was a time when we thought maybe Pereira is going to clear out this division. But I always thought Ankalaev was the guy that was going to challenge him, and he sure did.
Absolutely agree. Fantastic fight in the main event. I loved it. I'm interested to see what happens next and what the UFC do. But I think the rematch will definitely come soon. I think it will come sharp. I think the UFC will kind of book that. Maybe, summer. I think summer might work.
Yeah, we know that Pereira loves to stay busy. Even when he got knocked out to lose his middleweight title, 2 months later, he was back already. With Magomed Ankalaev, he seems a little less anxious to jump back in there right away. In fact, he indicated that he wouldn't mind returning in October in Abu Dhabi. But you never know. With the increase in pay that Magomed is going to have as champion, might be a little more enticed. But I do think that Yair Prochazka is the more interesting matchup at this stage. He called for the fight, but I do think he's probably going to need to win one more, judging by the fact that He's only on a 1-fight win streak. He got knocked out by Pereira, came back, and was able to finish Jamal Hill. I think you should give him the winner of Jan Blachowicz and Rakic, and maybe the winner of that could get a title shot after that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Fantastic main event was Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. A close fight. Could have went either way. I'm not arguing with the judges' scorecards. It was a close fight. Whoever got the hand raised was rightful winner, and it was Magomed Ankalaev on the day. I saw people calling out robbery, but I think people are too sharp to say that word nowadays. But, if you look at robbery, there are some bad ones, but this one I think was with the right call. Next one, we have Justin Gaethje.
I think they were financially invested on Pereira, so that might have been a little bit of the reason why they were so bitter.
Yeah, that's a great one. Next one, we had Justin Gaethje, Rafael Fiziev in the co-main event, and I said before we went on air, if we put these guys fighting every weekend, every month, they're going to produce a banger, and they're going to produce a fight of the night, as you can see here. Fight of the night. Justin Gaethje, when's this man not in a fight of the night? Back after a little bit of a hiatus. A big win needed was for Justin Gaethje, because obviously coming off the back of a devastating loss, getting knocked out badly against Max Holloway, and obviously that fantastic knockout, one of the best knockouts I've ever seen in recent history in UFC. He had to come back and put on a statement, and in typical Justin Gaethje fashion, he put on a fight of the night.
Yeah, this was exactly what we expected from this fight. It was going to be Justin Gaethje, maybe mixing in some wrestling, but overall he's going to come in there and brawl. And Rafael Fiziev, he has more tools, he has better techniques, but it just doesn't matter at the end of the day, because this is just a grimy fist fight that Gaethje's going to put you in. He's going to make it dirty, and dirty he did in round 2. That dirty boxing was phenomenal. That uppercut in the clinch would have finished most guys in this division, but not Rafael Fiziev. He hung in tough, but overall you could see the fact that he was in a short fight camp in the 3rd round. As he was in the first fight, he waned a little bit with his pace, and that's how Fiziev was able to decisively win that 3rd round and win on the judges' scorecards. You have to applaud Justin Gaethje, because a lot of fighters would have never truly come back from that kind of knockout as he faced against Holloway. So he's coming back. He's still aggressive, and he's not gun shy, and he was able to take some big shots on this night. So I think Justin Gaethje is here to stay for now.
Yeah, it was a big one for Justin Gaethje. He needed it to kind of just reignite himself. Obviously, a big loss against Max Holloway. A big win for Justin Gaethje. Good to see. Obviously, Rafael Fiziev taking this one on short notice as well. That must be said. An absolute dog as well. Went in there, put his heart on the line. It felt like at round 2, maybe Rafael was paying the price for taking this one on short notice, because it looked like he maybe had one full round in him with Justin Gaethje.
Yeah, and for Justin Gaethje, it makes sense for him to call for a title shot, simply because of the circumstances in this division. Islam has beaten so many guys. He doesn't want a rematch. Ilia Topuria's in the mix, but he has not won a fight in the division since Jai Herbert a couple of years ago. So, and also Arman Tsarukyan already lost to Islam, and he pulled out of the first fight. So, like, it's a weird situation we have going on in the division, and that's where you can have a guy that is willing to fight at any time in Justin Gaethje. That's where he can slide in and get an opportunity, deserved or not.
Yeah, it should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Let's talk about the next one. Ignacio Bahamondes and Jane Turner, which was a great performance for Ignacio Bahamondes. Choked out Jane Turner with a triangle choke in the first round. Jane Turner fought, rewind maybe a few years ago, maybe the man to talk about, 155 pounds, how dangerous he can be, his long frame. And this one was a fantastic bit of matchmaking from the UFC. 2 lanky lightweights in the UFC. It was a great one to watch. And at the end of the day, Ignacio Bahamondes used his reach really well, latched up that triangle choke against Jane Turner and got the victory, got the submission victory. And ultimately, Jane Turner after that kind of hanging up the gloves. And, it's such a shame at 29 years old, had a lot of potential, but on a rough patch at the moment. Firstly, Oscar, talk to me about Ignacio Bahamondes. Slick submission, getting the victory, a big win for him.
Yeah, this was only Ignacio's second submission victory in his career. Nobody was expecting this. This guy is a Chilean striker. He uses those rangy attacks perfectly. So we thought if he was going to win this fight, he was going to be with his striking. But Jalen Turner completely turned this fight on its head when he went for a takedown. This is not something that Jalen Turner ever does. He always tries to knock guys out on the feet and then maybe hunt for a submission. This time around, he fought a little differently, and he paid for it, just being complacent in the guard of Balmundez. Balmundez has those very long limbs, and Turner has the long limbs himself, so it's quite easy to get caught in a submission there. And that was a great triangle choke. It shows that Ignacio is improving constantly. He's training in the same gym as two UFC champions, Juliana Pena and Bilal Muhammad. So there's a reason to believe that he has excellent coaching with Mike Valley over there in Chicago. So this is going to be a guy you should look out for. He earned a ranking with this, and yeah, the sky's the limit for this kid if he keeps on improving. Which striking defense was an issue for him for a while, but I do think he can clean that up and learn how to use that range better.
Absolutely, and the rest of the card, obviously Mandalay was getting the win against his man Lacindo. Mauricio Ruffy, though, this guy went in there against King Green and kind of put on a performance. King Green obviously on a really bad run of form as well. Mauricio Ruffy with a spinning heel kick knockout, which is probably one of the greatest knockouts that we've seen in recent times. It was devastating, wasn't it, Oscar?
It was so quick that I missed it on the live feed. I looked at my phone for 1 second, and Bobby Green was face down, and the replay was just insane. You have to put it in slow motion to really see what happened there. King Green has always fought with his hands down, and I just noticed that the reflexes were worse and worse in his last couple fights. So I thought this was a foregone conclusion. Hoofy is a very hard hitter. His last opponent was this Peruvian just tank of a man who wouldn't go down, and Green has been finished before. So I really was confident in this pick here. Hoofy, he showed that athleticism in this fight and how it's going to give problems to guys in this division. So another lightweight you should look out for, because this guy has all the potential in the world.
Absolutely. Talk to me about the rest of the card. Obviously, we had a few good finishes. Carlos Leal went in there and just went knocked out Alex Morono. We had Bruno Ferreira getting a submission victory against Arnold Petrosian. As soon as that got to the ground, it was Daylight who had the advantage there. But yeah, talk to me about the rest of the card. Joshua Van as well. Beating Ray Tajora, upsetting him, getting rid of the undefeated streak. Talk to me about the obviously the prelims and the first few fights.
Yeah, for Joshua Van and Ray Seguria, this is the first fight where both men were both born in the 21st century, and the talent showed out there was quite impressive considering their ages. It really shows the progression of MMA. Joshua Van is such an awesome fighter in so many ways. He wants to fight next month. This guy will not stop fighting. If it was up to him, I think he would fight like 10 times a year. This guy does not care about his health. He just loves to get in scraps, and that's what he does. Saruya was unable to get the wrestling domination he was hoping for, and Van was just piecing him up on the feet the whole time. And for Bruno Ferreira and Armin Petrosian, it was a very fun fight, but those fouls were nonstop from Armin Petrosian. I really thought it was going to result in him finishing Bruno. That's how bad the fouls were, but Bruno was able to shake it off and get a takedown and get a pretty easy submission. We know Petrosian's not a good grappler, but we've seen him defend submissions from really talented guys. Like we're talking Caio Borraio, RoboCop, Gregory Rodriguez. Those are high-level black belts that could not submit him. So for Bruno to do it, that really shocked me, especially since Bruno I always considered to be a small guy in the weight class. So for him to manhandle Petrosian like that, that's really impressive.
Absolutely. Fantastic victory for Bruno Ferreira. He continues his win streak. And Carlos Leal had a disappointing UFC debut, but he came in there and put on a fantastic performance against Alex Morono, who definitely passed his best at 34 years old. He was a heavy underdog, and I feel like it was definitely justified. Carlos Leal, obviously, former LFA standout now inside the UFC. Had a tough debut, but now he's inside the UFC, getting that victory, and now he's gonna probably, hopefully, get on some momentum. UFC 313 though, what's your overall thoughts? 7 out, 10 out of 10, 7 out of 10, overall out of 10. What we're going with?
I would say this was like an 8 out of 10 card, just because I'm a big Ankalaev fan. Not a lot of people want to hear that, but as I said, this is a guy that I believe to be the best in the world for a long time, and the UFC was going against their meritocracy, and they were denying this guy chances at the title for guys like Khalil Rountree, who were gonna strike, have more exciting fights with Pereira. But I knew that Ankalaev is the best that we have in the game, and he showed it out there. That was a thrilling main event to me, because with Pereira, at any time he can end the show. So I was on pins and needles that whole fight, just sweating that bet. And Gaethje, Fiziev, awesome, and probably the KO of the year with Hoofy. So there's a lot to love here, and I really think that the next pay-per-view might even top it. UFC 314. Volkanovski versus Lopez for the featherweight title. That is going to be a banger.
Yeah, an absolute joke of a card. The co-main event, obviously, Michael Chandler, Paddy Pimblett. Ridiculous. But before that, we do have another event in the legendary, the historical, that is the UFC
mighty,
Apex. The mighty Apex. We're back. We're back in the Apex. I absolutely love it, don't I? No, I don't. In the main event, Marvin Vettori against Roman Dolidze. That in itself, it's not a bad fight. A middleweight, contest. Roman Dolidze. Marvin Vettori actually thought he was fighting. Was it Roman Kopylov when he?
That's correct. Yeah.
So it's good to see that he figured out that he's fighting Roman Dolidze. This is the second fight. Marvin Vettori, according to Tapology, is a slight favorite. Roman Dolidze sort of gone on a little bit of a win streak since they last fought, which was back in 2023, a decision victory for Marvin Vettori. Since then, been on a 2-fight win streak against Anthony Smith, and obviously last fight against Kevin Holland. Oscar, who have you got in the rematch? Do you think it plays out quite similar? Marvin Vettori, isn't the most kind of exciting guy. He wins these decisions. He likes to take photos on media day with his shorts backwards. Just talk to me about this fight. How do you see it playing out?
I feel like this is the kind of fight that Vettori will benefit from, a 5-rounder and a fight against a guy that is not super technical, because that's one of the big knocks that Vettori is. He's super durable, so he depends on that durability to make things dirty. But if he fights a technical guy like Adesanya or even a Kenner, he's going to get beat up because those guys have better technique than him. But Roman Dolidze, this is just a clubber. This guy goes out there, swings those hammers, tries to take your head off, and he's got really good grappling. But if he can't get it going, he just relies on the striking. And if you look at the fight with Nasruddin Imavov, that was a horrible performance. In fact, that was his first fight after the loss to Vettori. And let's talk about that first fight. That first fight could have gone to Dolidze, even though Vettori won. The first round was crazy that anybody gave that to Vettori, because Vettori got rocked bad in that round. But it all came down to the volume for Vettori winning him this fight. And the difference here is Dolidze is going to have to pace himself, because I don't think he can finish Vettori. In fact, nobody can finish Vettori. Vettori ate the record amount of strikes in a middleweight fight when he fought Cannonier, and he never got dropped in that fight. So this is an otherworldly chin we're dealing with here with Vettori. So Dolidze is going to fight his usual way. He's going to tire out. Vettori is going to take over in rounds 3, 4, and 5 and win a decision. But there is one possibility here. It's that Marvin Vettori, sure, he's only 31, but he's coming off a major surgery he had a major shoulder injury that has kept him out of the octagon for a very long time, over a year now. So who knows? He could be a lesser version of himself, and that's where we could potentially see Dolidze have a better outing here. But I have to go with Vettori here. I just like the fact that Sure, he won the first fight, but we saw that he's going to have a higher volume, little bit better technique, and he can't be put away. So going with Vettori.
Yeah, I'm also in agreement. I think Vettori wins this fight. If you look at Vettori's last fight, last win, sorry, in MMA, it was actually against Roman Dolidze in 2023. A year and a bit later, here we are again. His last fight was against Jared Cannonier, which he lost. That fight was obviously rated as fight of the night. That was in the Apex again. So Marvin Vettori is clearly UFC likes having him in the Apex and having him in these sort of main events. Same with Sean Strickland, etc. But this, for me, is a fantastic fight in the middleweight division. Should be a good one. Marvin Vettori returning after, as we talked about, a year and a bit. Roman Dolidze sort of on a win streak, 2 back-to-back wins. But he was in this same position when he fought Marvin Vettori the first time around. And I think it's going to be rinse and repeat. I think Marvin Vettori gets the win. And also I like the decision as well. I think Marvin Vettori, by decision, it's just a guarantee. I don't see this man finishing him. I think Roman Dolidze is very tough as well. I don't think Marvin Vettori kind of has that knockout power or submission threat that Roman Dolidze will be able to kind of. I think Roman Dolidze can handle the grappling of Marvin Vettori, but I think it's decision. I think it's got to be. This one's got written all over it. But a good main event in the middleweight division should be a good one. Looking forward to seeing who comes out on top. Next one we have Alessio Zalecki versus Gigi Njokwani. This one, Gigi Njokwani is a slight underdog according to Tapology, plus 170. Njokwani, sorry, 2 wins back to back against Reece McKee and Jared Gooden. Zalecki, he's obviously 1 win against Zach Scroggin. Oscar, talk to me about this one. 2 veterans. We've got the Brazilian who's obviously been inside the UFC for a very long time, and Gigi Njokwani, who's obviously just came into UFC not too long ago, but he's had a few fights. He made a big impact when he first came into the UFC with obviously that big overhand against Marc-Andre Barry and knocked him out. But he's had a few fights since then. He's 4-3, up and down record, but 2 wins now back to back. Who have you got in this one?
I like the underdog here. I think Gigi Njokwani hits like a truck. He has a lot of great weapons in the clinch. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos is going to be the smaller man here. And with that 7-inch reach advantage, I think it could be a game changer. Gigi is a weight bully, if you ask me, in this division. He's just huge out there. And that physicality is going to go a long way. Zaleski, if he's going to have success, I think has to wrestle here. But he's really not a guy to do that. Showing the Randy Brown fight, he did get his back, but I just don't think that's the kind of fighter he is. He's a guy that was able to knock out Sean Strickland with a wheel kick back in the day. But as he's aging now, he's 38. I don't think he has the same athleticism as a Njokwani currently has. I think he's going to get beat up on the feet here. His last win for Zaleski was Benoit Saint-Denis, which was like 2021. So like that was a long time ago. I just don't think he's at the top of his game anymore. While Chidi, I've seen some like flashes of like brilliance here and there in this welterweight run. So I'm gonna go with Chidi, and I think he actually gets a knockout here in round 2.
Yeah, this is a great fight. I like this one. Gigi Njokwani, as I mentioned, made a statement in his UFC debut of the big knockout. Let's maybe see that happen this weekend. Alessio Zalecki, obviously, veteran in this game, 25 wins and 8 losses. If you look at his, his record, notoriously not really been stopped that too much. Obviously, we had that loss against Jin Liang in 2019, but other than that, hasn't really been stopped or submission. But Gigi Njokwani does have that knockout power. I like this one, obviously, Gigi Njokwani to get this decision victory. As you mentioned before, obviously that 7-inch reach advantage will pay dividends this weekend. I think he's going to be able to touch him before the Brazilian gets in, and maybe he might be able to put him away, but I don't see that happening. I think it's a decision. But let's see what happens. Next one at 155 pounds, we've got Alexander Hernandez versus Kurt Holloway. Kurt Holloway, obviously coming off the back of the Ultimate Fighter, and Alexander Hernandez, who came into the UFC, made some waves with a big win over Benil Dariush, and sort of kind of faded, since then. But he's looking to build himself back up, and he's taken Kurt Holloway, as I mentioned, coming off the Ultimate Fighter and actually winning that the Ultimate Fighter. Since then, dropped a loss to Trey Ogden and then picked up a win again. For me, this one, I think it's quite. I see Kurt Holloway as the underdog, and in my head, I think that's a great dog pick. Alexander Hernandez, I can't really throw any confidence in. As you know, in recent years, recent times, I feel like he's been a guy that you can't really rely on. When he came into the UFC, that big win against Beneil Dariush, but since then, I feel like he's been quite disappointing. He has produced moments at times. This could be one this weekend, but for me, I can't really go in with confidence with Alex Hernandez, and that's why I'm going for Kurt Holloway. I think he beats him this weekend. Kurt Holloway obviously run that confidence off, winning that the Ultimate Fighter, and a big win last time out as well against a 15-2 prospect. I'm going with Kurt Holloway. I think he gets the job done.
With Alexander Hernandez, there's been a lot of problems in his career. One of the problems is he can't decide what weight class he likes. He likes fighting at lightweight to start off. He moves down to featherweight. He goes back up to lightweight. He goes down to featherweight. It's a weird situation he's got going on. I hope he makes up his mind because I think he can have success in either division, but he's just not a guy I ever see staying in the rankings. He's going to beat most of these unranked guys, but I guess you could call him a gatekeeper of the rankings. For Kurt Holloway, this is a guy who was basically about to retire, and then he gets a call for the Ultimate Fighter, wins the whole thing, has great performances, great finishes. He's a brawler, but he's got great submission skills, which I don't think Hernandez is going to let him use here. I think Hernandez is going to do his usual thing where he wins rounds 1 and 2, and he has a tough third round. We've seen him do it many times. I just believe that Hernandez has a bit of a speed advantage here, so that's why I'm going with him. Not much else, to be honest. I think he can defend takedowns if he needs to. In fact, he may be able to get a couple of his own. But yeah, Hernandez is the pick here. But as you said, not a lot to love on his side as of late.
Next one is a great one at bantamweight. Actually, I like this one. Damon Blackshear versus Cody Gibson. Another tough alumni is Cody Gibson. He's been on that twice, actually. I think he's won it twice. Is that the history that he made?
That was Brad Katona, the man that beat him.
That's it. The man that beat him, Brad Katona, in the final. There we are. Brad Katona winning that tough final twice. But since then, dropped a loss against Miles Johns, but now on a 2-win streak against Brian Kelleher and Chad Anahaliga, or whatever his name is. But Damon Blackshear is looking to come in there and upset the party and make him go back to another loss. He's come off a big win against Cody Stamann, who, if we thought about Cody Stamann 5 years ago, that would be a big win. But this is Cody Stamann as of late, and that's a bit of a pushover win. Not been great form as of late. So that one, a tough one to take. But he was coming off 2 losses against Mario Batista and Montel Jackson. So that's a tough 2 fights. Mario Batista, fantastic, and Montel Jackson as well have heavy hands. This one for me, tough one to pick. Oscar, who you going with?
I really liked Damon Blackshear in this fight. Cody Gibson, he's another guy who was likely saved by the Ultimate Fighter from the regional scene. He had a UFC run before. He was one of the vets that came back into the UFC, and he's not really had much success out there. Sure, he's been able to get 1 submission in there, if I'm not mistaken, and outside of that, he's not going to beat these more talented guys. And Damon Blackshear, I think, is a talented guy. Sure, he had that horrible loss to the name Montel Jackson. He got knocked out in 20 seconds. That was a horrible loss. But outside of that, you see him competitive in a lot of these fights. He's a skilled grappler. In fact, when he fought Mario Batista, I thought he beat Mario Batista. And Mario Batista is now a guy we're talking about in the top 10. So also you have to look at that draw with Yusuf Zalal. He's the man that took Yusuf Zalal out of the UFC. Now Yusuf Zalal is like number 11. So he's a guy that on the right day could be a ranked fighter. And Cody Gibson, on the other hand, I just don't see him in that conversation. I think Damon Blackshear is the better top heavy grappler here. He's going to get takedowns. Cody Gibson's going to try to get something off his back and ultimately fail. On the feet, it could get a little tricky because Cody Gibson has is a little more of a rangy fighter, even though you see that Damon Blackshear has a reach advantage. Cody Gibson likes to fight long. So I just see a great path to victory for Damon Blackshear here, just to dominate on the ground.
Yeah, should be a good one. I'm looking forward to it. Damon Blackshear, obviously a heavy favourite according to Tapology, -485. The money will probably be on him. Is there a potential dog upset for Cody Gibson? Would you sprinkle some on that or not?
I just don't see, especially you're talking about a 37-year-old bantamweight at this point. You know, he's near the end.
Yeah, would be a good win for Cody Gibson if you can get it, but a tough one against Damon Blackshear, who's obviously coming off a big win. Let's see next one. This one, Oscar, you're probably going to have to try and pronounce that guy's name. He's taking on Brandon Ribeiro then.
Yeah, so DR Nurgozai missed weight horribly, 4.5 pounds over the weight limit. In a shameless weight miss, if you ask me. The guy, he looked puffy out there. He did not try to make this weight today. So his game plan is to be a weight bully in there. He's going to try to knock out Brenson Ribeiro out there. And honestly, I think it's not going to work. I think Brenson Ribeiro, sure, he's not the most durable guy out there, but I think he can make things tricky for DR. DR is just a brute out there. And Brenson might be able to get a couple of takedowns here. It makes things tricky for DR. Brenson, also, say what you want. In these fights where he's getting knocked out, it's because he's trying to knock the guy out and he gets knocked out in the process. So this is more of a 50-50 fight than the odds may suggest here. So I think there's value on the underdog, Brenson Ribeiro here. DR is not like a high-level fighter in my eyes. So Brenson having a little more UFC experience, having the reach advantage, I think he can make something happen here.
Yeah, if you look at DR's record as well, not really been, the most active guy. So 2022 had a big layoff, and then the next fought in 2024. He had a big win against Mario Sordi, who I believe maybe appeared on, PFL, Bellator.
Yeah.
That's his best win as I can see to date. So other than that, not really, the greatest. A few wins. But most of them, if you look at them, most of them are, but obviously, finish. He's had two decision victories, so maybe he's gonna look in there, get it done early. And if you miss him by 4 pounds, that extra 4 pounds of weight against, as you talked about, Ribeiro, who, again, not the most high levels or of guys, 16 wins, 7 losses. If you look at his career throughout his career, knocked out quite a few times. For me, I'm going with I think he's gonna go in there early. I think he's got one round in him or bust. If he gets to the second and third round, we could see this guy kind of puffing and sort of gassing out, and Ribeiro cruising into victory maybe. But if Diaz can go in there in that first round and potentially knock him out, which Ribeiro has been a sort of
Chinny,
likely, chinny. So I think he can get the job done, but it's got to be done early for me.
Yeah, this is a very volatile fight. I don't know if I would recommend betting on it much, but if you're going to bet aside, take the dog or pass on it altogether. The next fight I really have been looking forward to for a long time because Kevin Vallejos is a very exciting young prospect, and he's the guy that has given John Silva the toughest fight so far under the UFC banner. He fought John Silva on Contender Series and went to a decision with him, and he was only 21 during that fight. So he's had 2 years to improve. He was able to get an easy knockout on Contender Series, got signed. Now he's fighting Sungwoo Choi, who has had a very up and down UFC run, but he's lost to mostly quality guys. But that durability has not been reliable. He got knocked out by Bruce Leroy. He got knocked out by Michael Trezano, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's major vulnerabilities in his defense, and Kevin Vallejos is the kind of young, confident kid that is going to get in his face, and I think he's just going to brawl with him until he topples over. I just see Kevin Vallejos having tons of durability in the pocket, while Sungwoo Choi will not. So I think this is a knockout win for Kevin Vallejos. This is why he's a huge 6-1 favorite.
Yeah, Kevin Vallejo's, as you mentioned, has showed that knockout power in recent years and recent times. He was scheduled to fight Luke Riley on the Contender Series, and that could have been a tricky fight for Luke Riley. Luke Riley, obviously, a next generation MMA prospect out of Liverpool here in England, could have been a tough one. I'm glad they kind of didn't run that one because two prospects, one of them is going to have to win, can knock off one definitely. But yeah, if you look at his record, a lot of finishes for me, as you mentioned as well. Song Woo Choi is a heavy underdog, and I think that's warranted. Unless we see something special from the man this weekend, I think he loses, and I think he loses pretty heavily. If you look at his track record, a lot of finishes on his losses. I think he goes in there. I think Kevin Velazquez, when he goes in there, puts on a clinic and gets maybe a submission, or I think he gets us either way he wants, submission or a knockout win. I think he defeats it. I think he defeats Song Woo Choi.
Yeah, I really like Vallejo's being super active on Twitter. The guy responds to all the fans, and he makes very bold statements. Like he wants a rematch with John Silva right now. He said that he's going to knock out Sung Woo Choi pretty early here. So I believe him, and I love the confidence.
Absolutely. The next one, heavyweight. It's weird seeing Ryan Spann at heavyweight, but Wilder Cortez Acosta is welcomed him. I do believe Ryan Spann to the heavyweight division. If not, maybe he's fought for. I'll have a look. Quick check. He fought over St. Prue, but that's still at light heavyweight. So yeah, he's making his heavyweight debut. Just talk to me firstly about Ryan Spann moving up to heavyweight. Do you think that's a good move? 33 years old in terms of heavyweights. That's quite young. Weighed in at 249 pounds, so quite medium-sized heavyweight. But firstly, he was always a big light heavyweight. 6'5". Good frame on him. Do you think this is a smart move for Ryan Spann moving up?
For Ryan Spann, one of the big flaws he had at light heavyweight was his cardio. It would let him down a lot, and you could tell that the weight cut was part of that reason he missed weight here and there. And Wilder Cortez Acosta, I think, is probably the more natural built heavyweight. But for Ryan Spann, the guy's 6'5", almost an 80-inch reach, even a reach advantage and a height advantage here. So he's really got the size that is required to succeed here. But I don't like the fact that he came in quite heavy here. Honestly, I feel like he should have taken the Jailton Almeida approach, where he just doesn't really cut weight. He just comes in shredded. But hey, I think with the state of the heavyweight division, for being completely honest, there's not a lot of great talent or athleticism in the lower ranks. And Ryan Spann is the kind of guy that could demolish a lot of those guys, which says a lot, honestly, because Ryan Spann, not the most talented light heavyweight, but the fact that he has that speed and athleticism, and he does have a great guillotine too, I think he can go pretty far here with Wilder Cortez Acosta. He's just got very rudimentary skills. Like he's got that big overhand right. He has, decent takedown skills enough to beat what was his name? The guy that got cut, the really tall Cuban.
Oh, Rebelos.
Yeah, Rebelos to Spain. Yeah, he had to take him down. I just don't see a lot of special things in Cortez Acosta's game. I think Ryan Spann is more athletic here. I think he wins the decision here. It's going to be super sloppy near the end, but as I said, Ryan Spann, he has some qualities that are appealing here. Tons of UFC experience too.
Absolutely. Tons of UFC experience. For me, I'm going to go with Ryan Spann. You talked about, obviously, not being, obviously being quite heavy and, moving straight back up, especially, weighing at 205 pounds in his last fight. 249 pounds, if you did take that, that Jailton Almeida approach, maybe, you could be sharper, could be quicker, definitely the Wilder Acosta, Cortez Acosta. I still like him in this position. Obviously a big win in his last fight. He's looking to make it 2 wins back to back. He's a slight underdog as well. Wilder Cortez Acosta, coming off a win against Rebelos, Spaniard, obviously he's been making waves in karate combat. Didn't really kind of materialize in the UFC quite the same though. Interesting fight this weekend at 265 pounds at heavyweight. I've got Ryan Spann. Let's see what happens this weekend. Next one, we've got Su Yong Yu against AJ Cunningham. AJ Cunningham making the drop down to, I believe, 135 pounds when his last fight was 155 pounds. So he dropped down 2 weight classes. I think originally he was a natural 145 pounder, but makes that drop down to 135 pounds. If you look at his record as well, he's been knocked out a few times, especially on the extended series. He got knocked out. That was 145 pounds. Will this one transparent well to 135 pounds? 10 more pounds to cut. Do you think that's a good choice? And who wins out of him and Soon Young Yu?
Yeah, this is a very tough fight because I don't think Su Young Yu should be a big favorite against anybody in the UFC. He was having a tough time with some of the competition and the road to the UFC, which, as we know, is just like a developmental organization for the Asian territories. So like it's not like the highest level talent we're talking about here. But for Adrian Cunningham, this guy trains with Bryce Mitchell. He had a really tough childhood, like was injected with steroids, was given dog food, was living in a dog kennel, had a horrible life. So this shaped him into being a fighter in life. But he just doesn't have the best technique out there, just a straight up brawler. But you have to imagine that Bryce Mitchell is helping him with the grappling defense. And Su Young Yu, that's what he does, is grapple. So he can make things interesting on the feet, but ultimately, I do think that Su Young Yu probably gets some takedowns and some control time here. I don't see a lot of great things in AJ Cunningham's game. While Su Young Yu, I see more as a prospect.
Yeah, coming into the UFC with a little bit of momentum, obviously 3 wins back to back to back to back. Obviously, he talks about the road to the UFC. Being a bit of a developmental for the Asian market. Let's see if it works out. See if the investment from the UFC, kind of pays out. AJ Cunningham obviously making that drop down to 135 pounds. I think it's not going to be great for him. If you look at his last fight, he got a front body kick. He lost as well against Ludwig Klein. I just think he's going to be more vulnerable and more susceptible to a knockout loss, potentially into the body again. 110 more pounds to cut. I think it's going to be brutal. So. He's 5'10", so if he can continue to make the bantamweight limit and look good, he's a big bantamweight. Who knows what could happen? But as you talked about, I think if you look at Su Young Yu, definitely the prospect to be looking at. I think he's definitely got a bright future. Let's see what happens this weekend. But it should be a good one at bantamweight. We have another one at bantamweight as well. We've got Josias Musasa. Musasa. That's quite cool. Against Carlos Vieira. As you can see there, the nickname for Josias is the KO Wizard. 26 years old, a minus 800 favorite, according to Tapology. That's quite big.
Yeah, and I feel like a major reason is the fact that we're talking about an 11-year age gap here. Carlos Vera, we talked about many guys on this card. They're from that one season of The Ultimate Fighter where the UFC brought in some veterans and some quote unquote rookies, but Carlos Vera is no rookie. This guy's been fighting for a long time. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's got really good Conor McGregor loved him because he had if I'm not mistaken, he had a capoeira black belt. So he has these unorthodox attacks, and he also can use those leg locks pretty well. But ultimately, at the UFC level, I don't see many guys faltering to his tactics here. Josias was looking damn good on Contender Series. This guy does hit really hard. He has a lot of explosivity and aggression that will go pretty far. But for Carlos Vera, I haven't really seen a lot of issues with his chin. But I think a guy as quicker and aggressive as Josias, I think he's going to knock him out in round 2. Josias did miss weight by half pound today, so that was a tough weight cut. So I think he's got to get this job done early, and I think he will.
Absolutely. A lot of riding into it. Obviously, as you can see, they're minus 800 favorite. Let's see what happens this weekend. 37 years old is Carlos Vera. 11-year age gap, as you mentioned there, could pay factor this weekend. 5'8" is Josiah, so a little bit of a reach advantage, has a little bit of a height advantage as well. Let's see what happens this weekend. 8-0. Let's see if he keeps that undefeated streak. Sam Hughes versus Stefano Luciano in this one. For me, Sam Hughes, 9-6. Been around the block, traded some wins, traded some losses. come off a split decision win against Victoria Dudakova, where she was 8-0. But I feel like she came inside the UFC and sort of kind of fought, prospect after prospect after prospect. I think the UFC have not really gave her a good run for her money. She came inside the UFC, fought Teacher Pennington, Luma Lukbumi, and she sort of just kind of gone on and on and on. And trade some wins, had some really good wins. Beat Jacko Mori, who's 6-0, beat Victoria Dudakova, who's 8-0. So kind of, maybe a prospect killer in her division. Is she going to beat Stephanie Luciano though? 6-1. How do you think this fares?
Yeah, this is a tough one because this is the kind of fight that Sam Hughes has been known to win in the UFC so far. As you said, kind of a prospect killer. So I'm surprised they gave her Stephanie Luciano, who this is one of her first couple fights in the UFC. In fact, they had her do a rematch from her Contender Series fight, which was a draw with a Talita Alencar, and she was able to win it really decisively the second time around. She was able to style on her. Talita Alencar is actually a higher level jiu-jitsu player than Sam Hughes is, but Sam Hughes is pretty physical out there, and she uses her toughness to just walk forward, pressure opponents. But I'm not sure. I do like the talent of Stephanie Luciano. She does have a lot of speed. She does have tenacity in there, which I appreciate. This is going to be a split decision, I think. I think we're going to see Sam Hughes get multiple takedowns, but ultimately it's going to be Luciano landing better shots on the feet, especially from the outside. But yeah, don't be surprised if Sam Hughes gets another win as an underdog here.
Absolutely. Should be a good one. Looking forward to it. You're going with Sam Hughes though, but I'm going with Stephanie Luciano. Should be a good one.
I am going with a Luciano, but Sam Hughes is a party spoiler, so we never know.
There we are. Absolutely. Let's see what happens this weekend. Next one at 125 pounds, we had Andre Lima, obviously, sort of got bit. I think that's the best way to put it. Against Igor Severino, had a split decision win against Mitch Raposo, and then obviously win against Felipe dos Santos. Now he takes on a guy, Spanish Spaniard who's 17-6. Had a lot of experience before coming to the UFC. Made his debut against João Filho, and then won against Victor Altamirano. This one, Andre Lima was, a big prospect against her. I feel like he was, 10-0. I think a lot of people are riding onto him. He went in against Igor, obviously winning that fight. He's only lost, that I can see really in Muay Thai. Other than that, he had an amateur loss. He's looking good. Obviously, we know how good his kickboxing, his Muay Thai is. But let's see how it turns out against Daniel Perez. Oscar, who have you got in this one? Obviously, Andre Lima, 10-0, heavy favorite again, according to Taponchi.
Yeah, I love Andre Lima. Andre Lima is talented wherever the fight goes. On the feet, he's gonna swing hooks nonstop, high volume, and on the ground he can dominate guys. He fought Felipe dos Santos in his last fight. Felipe dos Santos had a great debut against Manel Kape, was able to score a knockdown. But since then, he's not been able to put it together. And when he fought Lima was much smaller, but he dominated him everywhere in that fight. So that showed me that Lima is a multifaceted, super dangerous fighter. And Perez, he's old for flyweight. 36 for flyweight. That's like being 40 in other weight classes. So I don't like it at all here. We're talking, as I said, another 10-year age gap here at flyweight. That's huge. Lima is going to dominate this fight. And in fact, I think he might get a late finish here.
Yeah, I've also got Lima. I think, he definitely showed him a lot more in his UFC career. UFC tenure thus far. Being undefeated, 10-0. I think there's a lot riding onto him. He's a great prospect. Definitely will look to back him. As you talked about, Spaniard being 36 years old at 125 pounds is like being 40 or 45 in the heavyweight division. Pretty crazy. Next one, 135 pounds. We've got Josiane Nunes versus Priscilla Cachoeira at 135 pounds. Should be a good one. Josiane Nunes, 10-3 in her career. The Brazilian has come off 2 losses back to back against Chelsea Chandler and Jacqueline Cavalcanti. Priscilla Cachoeira. I feel like we've seen her been around inside the UFC for a very long time, since 2018. She's 4-6 inside the UFC. She's also coming off 2 losses back-to-back against Miranda Maverick and Jasmine Justavicius, getting submitted both times in that fight. She has a slight underdog according to Tapology, and I sort of agree with that, but I am going with Jocelyn Nunez in this one. I think she's the younger, she's the more fresher of the two. She might be a little bit shorter, and obviously she's got a little bit more reach, which is kind of crazy apparently in terms of Tapology. But yeah, she's 31. I think she's definitely the fresher woman out of the two. I think she's got some power in them hands as well. I think they both do. If they both connect, who knows what could happen? I would never bet on a finish though in a women's MMA. It's always decision. I feel like so. I think it's gonna go decision for me, and I think Jocelyn Nunez edges that. This one, tough one to call. Could go either way. The battle of two Brazilians should be a good one.
I think this is going to be a war. Priscilla Cachoeira has gotten a fight of the night bonus before. Josiana Nunes is one of the rare fighters in this weight class that can get knockouts on the feet. She even got one against the super tall Bea Malecki. So these are two fighters that love to brawl in the pocket. And ultimately, Josiana Nunes, I think, has the power advantage here. And that's what's going to win her this fight. Priscilla Cachoeira, they call her Zombie Girl for a reason. Just walks forward, eats all of the shots, hoping to land her own. But ultimately, I think she's going to pay for walking forward here against Josiana Nunes, who might be smaller, but she packs a crazy punch out there. So Priscilla Cachoeira is not in the right weight class. And for Josiana Nunes, I don't think she's in the right weight class either, but she has shown the power to maintain her position in this weight class. So I'm going to go with Josiana Nunes by unanimous decision.
Absolutely. Should be a good one. Look forward to it. Hopefully kicks off the card. We've got 2 female fights to kick off the card. This first one, though. This one for me, if you're talking about, experience, obviously, Dubin, obviously 6-0. Carly Judice, 3-2. With that sort of record, obviously, no disrespect, you got to wonder, how she ended up inside the UFC, unless she's like a big name outside the UFC or etc. She came into the UFC when she was 3-0. She had 3 finishes to prepare to her. Came off a split decision victory on a contender series, so she must have still got signed. And then lost a split decision against Gabriela Fernandez. She takes on a bit of another prospect who's 6-0, who now makes her UFC debut, I do believe, after a contender series fight. Let's see how it all turns out. She came on the contender series against Shannon Clark and put the lights out. Overhand right, shut the lights out. Is that going to be the same this weekend? Does she finish Carly Judice?
Yeah, this one right here is really tough. This feels like a fight you would see on the prelims of a Bellator card back in the day with a 3-2 record like that. But it's a bit of a deceiving record because, as you said, she fought on Contender Series. Sure, she lost that, and then she had a split decision in the UFC against Fernandez, who's pretty decent, honestly. She's like your average low ranked fighter in this weight class. So Judice, I don't think is completely out of the realm of competition here in the UFC today. Eunice Dubin, on the other hand, I'm not sure she belongs in the UFC, if I'm being brutally honest, because she had that awesome knockout against the LFA champion. But outside of that, she has a very questionable training, because the UFC was talking about how she really didn't have any formal training back in her hometown of Venezuela. So I'm not sure what her training looks like. She has a lot of financial instability, the UFC said. So who knows how much high level training she's actually getting in, and the wins that she got before that knockout are against, as you see, people that have never fought professionally before. So I cannot. The record on paper looks good, but let's be honest here. This is not exactly a fighter that is better than a 3-2 record. So Carly Judice is the pick here. I think we've seen her go the full distance in the UFC before, and the technique was not that high, but like I see more potential in her, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, if you look at Dubin, her record before getting into the UFC, she never fought a girl with a win since she got an extended series, which is kind of crazy.
It's the knockout that got her the contract. You can't say no to somebody after one of the greatest knockouts we've ever seen on Contender Series.
Yeah, it was a big shot. Let's see how she gets on this weekend. 6-0, protecting that undefeated streak against a girl who's 3-2. Different aspects. Both very young. Obviously, Carly, she's 26 years old. A moderate favorite as well as Carly. So let's see how Crispy gets on. She might have them 2 losses, but as you mentioned there, maybe showed a bit of more of a polished game. Better fight. She's only had 5 fights, but fought the better women in her career thus far. So yeah, I like the pick with Carly as well. Should be a good one. But that wraps up Marvin Vettori, Dolidze in the main event. Should be a good one. Oscar, what's your pick for fight tonight? I know you spoke about Jocelyn Nunes, Priscilla Cachoeira. But what's your pick? Which one's going to be a banger?
Honestly, if I had to say, I would say that's a tough one. I would probably say Zaleski dos Santos and Chidi Njokuani, just because if we see the fight extended, I think both guys could hurt each other. Chidi cutting all that weight, he does leave himself open, and Zaleski did have a pretty fun fight with Brandy Brown last time out. But yeah, to be frank, I don't think there's going to be a fight of the night. This is the kind of card where we usually see 4 performance bonuses handed out.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Hernandez versus Kurt Hellbow. Something about that should produce, obviously, hopefully, Hernandez brings his A game. Kurt Hellbow sort of survives some punches. We can see a bit of a banger, 3rd round swinging some punches on the main card as well. So should be good. Look forward to it. Overall, though, card obviously, historically the UFC are not really stacking out these UFC Apex card because they don't have to pay for venue, they don't have to pay any license fees, they don't have to pay any site fees. Rate this one on a card from 0 to 10. What does that look like?
I would say this is probably a 5 from the UFC. I think this is the bare minimum that the UFC can do. Honestly, this is one of the weakest cards we've ever seen in the Apex on paper. We're talking about people that couldn't win on Contender Series, 3-2 records, guys that are way past their prime. I hate to be harsh, but that's kind of the harsh reality we're living in with the UFC. And I hope they wake up and realize that the fans have eyes. They can see that this is an empty arena with a couple of people that pay $2,000 for tickets. It's not ideal. We need fights in arenas. I don't care if you're losing money. We want them.
Yeah, and I don't even think the UFC are losing money. I think they're even making money with these UFC Apex cards. I feel like there was someone said on Twitter, and I completely agreed with it. Fans don't pay for the fights; they're paying for the UFC because the UFC is that big. Everyone just tunes in to watch the UFC. It doesn't matter who's fighting. Obviously, if someone's bigger is fighting, more people are going to tune in. But I feel like the hardcores, even casuals, are going to tune in, week out to watch the UFC, not Marvin Vettori, Roman Dolidze. I think the UFC.
I would say that's a great point. That's a great point because the UFC will be the one that can attract those crowds that can create that big fight feel atmosphere, and that's not in the Apex. They got bigger crowds than LFA, so you can watch a more energetic crowd in the LFA. So the UFC should really flex their muscles and get these big arenas going. And it doesn't just help with the the hardcore fans like us. It's going to help grow the sport. When you have events in certain areas, it creates buzz in those areas. Yeah. It can grow the sport itself, not just with the fans, but with people potentially looking at train in the area.
If you want to have a good note, though, obviously after this one, it is UFC London, which I will be there in the arena.
Yeah.
We will have fans in the arena.
That is a great card.
Yeah, it should be a good one. Obviously, I was a bit devastated. I can't lie that Jack Daniel Medellina fell out, and now we've got Sean Brady because stylistically, I think it's horrible, Philly and Edwards, but we'll talk about that next weekend.
Yeah, that is going to be a very tough one to pick because we've seen Leon Edwards fight successfully against grapplers. He can defend them, but there's other times where he just really has a bad day at the office, like the second Usman fight, the Bilal Muhammad fight. Sometimes he can defend it, sometimes he can't. We're going to find out. But the Jan Blachowicz-Ilbert fight, we talked about that one. That's a big fight in the weight class. And as you can see, just the best British and English talent and all across the UK. sprinkled across the board. Multiple people you've actually had on the show, including one of the rising contenders in the heavyweight division, Mick Parkin.
Yeah. Yeah, and he mentioned
Calvin
that.
Loughran.
Yeah. Mick Parker
Jai
only about
Herbert.
4 minutes away from me. So hopefully I might see him tomorrow. I'm at a local event here in southern England, so I might see him tomorrow and maybe get a picture.
Absolutely. Thanks for everybody that watched live and is going to watch this later on the YouTube stream section. And we're going to try to be a little more active. We always say this, but we're going to do what we can, juggling the schedules. So yeah, next week is the preview of UFC London. That one should be very lengthy and fruitful because there's so much to talk about in that scene right now. And as I said, UFC 314 is gonna knock your socks off.
Absolutely. We're gonna talk about that when we get to it. UFC London next week, and as you mentioned, should be a good one. Should be a lengthy one. I'll be traveling down on the Friday, so watch out for the Thursday preview. Should be good. Looking forward to that. Oscar, always a pleasure to talk with you. Let's see what happens with Marvin Vettori and Dolidze this weekend in the Apex. Not the greatest of cards, but as I mentioned, the UFC fans will watch because we're watching the UFC and the product that they offer because it is one of the greatest. Should be good. Oscar, an absolute pleasure. What's your last sending off words before we let them go?
Just try to enjoy the fights. I know they're not the best. Try to enjoy them.
Yeah, absolutely. Get some beers, get some Modelo's down you or something like that. I'm sure you enjoy it. That's me and Oscar. We'll catch you next week. A very goodbye from us, where we have UFC London to talk about. Should be a good one. Thank you very much. A very goodbye.